Hey guys, tonight we're looking way up into the cold, dark skies above a sleepy medieval village where something unexpected is about to streak across the stars. You're bundled under rough wool blankets, lying on a straw mattress that smells faintly of mildew and firewood. It's the 14th century. The moon is hiding, and the night is unusually silent. Too silent. That's when it happens. A glowing smear of light cuts across the heavens, bright and trailing like a torch, set loose in the firmament. Nobody knows what it is, but everyone's sure it means something terrible. Sure, today you might Google comet and get orbital paths, icy nuclei, and words like aphelion. But tonight you're just a humble villager with a bad feeling in your gut and a neighbor who won't stop whispering about omens. Honestly, you're not even sure if you saw it with your eyes or dreamed it after too much turnip stew. And let's be real, you're definitely not surviving the week. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I always love hearing that. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking home from a nearby barn when you first notice it like a tiny candle flame, high and trembling, just above the forest line. At first you assume it's a star, but no star moves like that. It trails. It glows. It leaves behind a smudge that doesn't fade. The smell of damp grass fills your nose. The wind has stilled, and even the owls have paused their complaints. A soft gasp ripples from your neighbor's window. Then someone further down the road cries out. There are whispers, slamming shutters, the creak of wooden crosses being lifted onto doors. No one knows what this fiery sign in the sky truly means, but all are convinced it cannot be good. By morning, the village is alive with speculation. The baker swears his bread wouldn't rise. A sheep gave birth to twins, one of them with an extra ear. The parish priest reminds everyone, quite loudly, that comets are sent by God to chastise the wicked. You look at your neighbor suspiciously. She's always been a bit too friendly with her chickens. Of course, it's not just your village. Across Europe, the same blazing visitor is turning nights into theater. In small towns and walled cities, comets become the stuff of sermons, gossip, and frantic interpretations. A king shall fall, one declares. War is near, another insists. In a time when the heavens are thought to be perfect and unchanging, any new guest in the sky causes mild to full-blown hysteria. And here's the kicker, there are no rules. One year a comet might be blamed for plague, the next for a royal wedding. If you're lucky, people forget it entirely by harvest. If not, well, you might end up being burned for whispering about the stars. There's something oddly comforting in how inconsistent it all is. Even fear, in medieval Europe, is a little chaotic. One friar in Flanders writes in his journal, "It was like a fiery broom, sweeping sins from the earth." Another, clearly less poetic, simply calls it a sky tale of Satan. Scholars across Italy scribble feverishly in Latin, drawing star charts with the accuracy of a kindergartner's coloring book. But not everyone panics. Some, in fact, make a bit of coin from the whole ordeal. An old woman 2 towns over claims she can read the fire and charges 1 egg per vision. Her predictions entirely weather-related. You'll get fog. Lots of it. Oddly enough, she's not wrong. A few bold souls do try to make sense of it. A monk named Adalbert insists the comet is a divine clock. returning every century to warn humanity it's being watched. By who, you ask? Adalbert doesn't specify, but he's quite passionate about it. There's even a court jester who turns the comet into a joke. What's long, bright, and makes the Pope nervous, he asks mid-performance. No one laughs. The Pope is in the audience. Still, fear lingers like wood smoke. You try not to look up at night, but you always do. The tale is growing. Or is it just your imagination? Time slows. Chores feel heavier, children stay indoors, and every creak of the barn door seems more dramatic. You can't help but wonder if the sky can change so suddenly. What else can, by week's end, your village holds a midnight prayer vigil, not for a saint or a holy day, just because no one can sleep. As you kneel in the cold grass, eyes tilted skyward, you think you see the comet pulse, just once, like it knows you're watching. It's silly, you tell yourself, but you don't look away. Historians today debate whether these sightings caused genuine panic, or were simply folded into the drama of daily medieval life. Some believe records were exaggerated by scribes who enjoyed embellishing. Others argue that the fear was all too real, especially in areas where famine or war was already knocking. But tonight, that doesn't matter. You, huddled under your woolen cloak, are sure of only one thing: something strange is happening above you. And for once, everyone in the village agrees. Even the chickens. The next morning, you wake to church bells early, frantic, and slightly off-key. That's never good. You shuffle out into the crisp air, feet bare against cold stone, and find half the village already at the square. Father Milrad, the local priest whose sermons often double as midday naps, is wide-eyed and waving a book you're pretty sure he doesn't normally use. It's heavier, dustier, and has ominous red thread binding the spine. He reads aloud a passage from the book of Joel, something about blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. You're still wiping sleep from your eyes when he turns toward the east and declares, "The sign is clear. Repent." You're not entirely sure what, for maybe that one time you drank ale meant for the monks, but you murmur along with everyone else. Just in case. Word spreads fast. A merchant passing through claims he saw 3 more comets in the same sky, though he might have just been seeing stars after too much wine. Someone else says Paris is on fire. A third insists the King of Bohemia is dead, though he later revises that to probably coughing. But it's not just villagers and gossipers whispering about flaming sky rocks. In abbeys and libraries tucked behind thick stone walls, learned men with ink-stained fingers scramble to compare old manuscripts. They flip through parchment as if they're searching for a name in a cosmic guestbook. One such scholar, Brother Tilden, is convinced that comets are mentioned in the Book of Revelations, the star called Wormwood. He mutters to anyone who will listen, "It poisons the waters." You're pretty sure he hasn't seen water in 3 days. Meanwhile, people are doing what people do best in uncertain times: they make things up. Children are told that if they stare too long at the comet, their eyes will turn to glass. A farmer refuses to plant beans, claiming legumes anger the tail. Someone starts sleeping with a fish under their pillow, an old Breton trick to keep sky spirits away. The fear is more than just atmospheric. It seeps into routines, habits, even relationships. Your cousin Gertrude stops baking because the rising bread reminds her too much of rising doom. A shepherd down the road paints stars on his sheep and swears it'll make them invisible to the sky. They don't look particularly camouflaged. And yet, amidst the panic, there are moments of strange peace. You walk out one evening and see two elders sitting side by side, gazing at the comet in silence. They don't say a word. They just sit and watch. Somehow, that feels more powerful than any sermon. Of course, for every moment of quiet awe, there's a noisy dispute. Two men argue over whether the comet is a warning from God or a curse from witches. They nearly come to blows. Then both agree it's probably both and go have soup. Interestingly, in cities like Florence and Nuremberg, early astronomers try to record the path of the comet. Their tools are primitive wooden sextants, fragile armillary spheres, and a heavy reliance on guesstimation. Still, they're trying. A noble effort, really. One Italian letter from this time compares a comet's tail to the devil's banner. It whips across the sky, the writer says, as if declaring a war between heaven and earth, a bit dramatic, but beautiful. And in all this, there's you tending your modest garden, glancing upward more often than you'd like, and wondering how something so far away can stir so much down here. You don't know the science. You don't have a telescope. You just have questions. At night, the comet glows brighter. It arcs lazily across the sky like a show-off. Birds stop singing. Dogs whine. You swear your neighbor's rooster crowed at midnight. No one sleeps well. You have a dream about a burning sky and a river running backward. When you tell the blacksmith, he nods gravely. The stars are stirring the water. He says, "You don't ask what that means." You just nod too. Some modern historians say these fears were projections, ways for people to explain the random cruelty of life. Death was everywhere. Famine was always near. War, disease, taxes, you name it. So when the sky added a glowing smear to the mix, people naturally expected the worst, as if the heavens were confirming their dread. Other scholars argue the fear was ritualized. Comets became an excuse to fast, pray, or ironically, party. One 13th century account describes a village that hosted a feast to honor the comet and confuse its wrath. There was dancing, pie, and a choir of donkeys. No one knows if it worked, but it sounds like fun. The problem is, no one remembers when a comet didn't mean trouble. If the year went fine, people forgot. If something bad happened, well, obviously the comet warned them. Tonight, the village elder calls a meeting. He holds up a hand-drawn chart that resembles a squashed fish more than a star map. "It's moving away," he says, pointing with confidence. You squint. It's just a smudge. Still, everyone cheers. Hope blooms like spring. And then, just before dawn, you see it fainter, farther, quieter. The comet, still trailing like a glowing thought, slowly retreats into the stars. It doesn't vanish. Not yet. But its tail seems shorter, its presence less sharp. Some say it's a sign of mercy. Others think it's circling back. You just know you'll sleep better tonight. Probably. The comet fades, but the memory lingers like smoke in old rafters. You wake with a strange emptiness, as if something that filled the sky has now left a hollow echo in your chest. It's odd how quickly people move on, or pretend to. One day it was all fire and fear, and the next, back to cabbage stew and patching roof leaks. But not everyone forgets so fast. You walk by the church and see Father Milrad scratching something new into the wooden door frame with the blunt end of a nail. To mark the passing, he says, not looking up. You think about asking why, but decide to let the moment be weird in peace. Soon, a traveling monk arrives. He's got ink stains on his robe, no shoes, and the kind of stare that says, "I've read too much Aristotle." He settles in for the week and gives a lecture by the well about the comet in the context of divine geometry. You catch 3 words: circle, judgment, and turnip. The rest is a mystery. Still, people gather. They listen. They want meaning. Even if it's the kind of meaning that sounds like it was written during a thunderstorm, with a feather dipped in goat tears. In the evenings, stories float across dinner tables like wisps of steam. You hear about a nobleman who blamed the comet for losing his prized goose. Another tale describes a shepherd whose sheep walked in a perfect spiral the night the comet burned brightest. Someone insists they saw a face in the sky, staring back. You laugh, then pause, then glance out the window, just to be sure. But it's not just folk tales. The scholars are getting busy. In Paris, a group of cloistered theologians convene to determine whether comets have moral weight. Do they punish only the sinful? Are they random? Are they just rocks blasphemy? Obviously, a heated debate breaks out. One side claims the comet came because of heresy in the northern provinces. The other says it's the southern provinces. A third suggests it's probably the fault of minstrels. Everyone nods. Minstrels are always suspicious. Meanwhile, in Prague, an astronomer named Carol attempts to calculate the arc of the comet's tail using a string, a candle, and 2 pigeons. No one is sure how the pigeons are involved, but Carol insists they're critical to the formula. Historians still argue about whether he was a genius or just very lonely. You begin to notice how the sky, though quiet again, holds a new weight. You used to glance up with curiosity. Now you scan it like a guilty dog waiting for thunder. One night, while feeding the chickens, you hear your name spoken behind you. You turn. No one. You pause. A star falls. Your heart jumps. Then you remember last night's stew had mushrooms. Still, it doesn't explain the whisper. Comets, they say, are messengers. But no one agrees on the message. In one scroll, found in the remnants of a burned abbey, a monk wrote, "I saw the tale," and in it, the sins of man stretched like silk. Beautiful, but vague. Another monk wrote simply, "Too bright. Bad sleep." Honestly relatable. This duality poetry and panic defines the medieval mindset toward the heavens. The cosmos was not a science. It was a sermon painted in stars. And you, humble you, are just trying to keep your roof from leaking when it rains meteors. A traveler from the south arrives with something rare, a book. Not a Bible, not a prayer book, but a dusty, bound collection of Roman writings. Inside is a passage by Seneca discussing comets. He describes them not as divine punishments, but as natural phenomena, moving, repeating, predictable. People gather to hear it read aloud. The air thickens with uncertainty. Afterwards, someone throws cabbage at the book. Another suggests Seneca was a witch. He's been dead for centuries, but you don't mention that. And then, one afternoon, something odd happens. A child, probably bored, possibly brilliant, says, "What if the comet just got lost?" Everyone stops for a second. That seems more comforting than all the theological debates combined. A lost star, wandering until it finds its way home. You like that idea, but not everyone shares your fondness for celestial ambiguity. Over in the city, a minor nobleman has declared the comet a personal insult and now walks around with a lead helmet lined with parchment scriptures. His servants pretend not to notice when he bumps into doors. Some people laugh, others nod solemnly. What's certain is that something has shifted. The comet may be gone, but it cracked the sky open, even if just a little. People talk more about the stars now. They notice the moon. Some even draw what they remember the comet looked like badly, but earnestly. One child's drawing looks like a duck with a sword. No one knows what to make of it, so they hang it in the tavern. At night, you lie awake, staring at the wooden ceiling, and wonder if it'll come back. Not soon. Maybe. Not in your lifetime. But someday. And you wonder what people then will think it means. Perhaps nothing at all. Or perhaps they'll think of you. The comet may have disappeared, but its tail lingers in conversation, in superstition, and most of all in the new prayers people whisper before bed. They're longer now, more specific, less about salvation, and more about the general hope that the sky will kindly not do anything weird again. One chilly morning, you overhear two elders in the marketplace arguing whether the comet was the same one seen during the death of Charlemagne. One insists it's the very same. The tail was crooked. And I remember stories of a crooked tail. The other squints and replies, "You weren't alive when Charlemagne died." A moment of silence. Then, the first elder responds thoughtfully, "Maybe I was in spirit." You nod respectfully and move on. Honestly, it's not the worst logic you've heard this month. In a nearby monastery, a record keeper named Brother Herwin begins compiling what he calls the Book of Celestial Flames. It includes hand-drawn diagrams of the comet, but also anecdotes, weather changes, animal births, and how many headaches were reported during its appearance. His charts are extremely detailed and extremely wrong. In one, the comet clearly appears to loop around the moon like a ribbon. In another, it has eyes. But you have to admire his commitment. Interestingly, his book includes a passage quoting an even older source, an Arabic text from Al-Andalus that describes a comet over Cordoba 3 centuries earlier. The account is calm, methodical. It passed. The people noticed. Then it was gone. You read that part twice, trying to decide if you're disappointed or envious. Meanwhile, in your village, the comet has become a kind of social glue. People who barely spoke now greet each other with raised eyebrows and remarks like, "Still no fire in the sky today." It's become a shorthand for shared dread and shared relief. And then comes a new rumor. It begins innocently. A merchant says he met someone who claims another comet is coming. This time, a blue one. Faster, meaner, with 2 tails. You roll your eyes. 3 days later, the same merchant swears he saw a blue flicker in the east. Cue panic again. This time, the panic is different, a little forced, a little performative. It's as if people are reenacting the previous fear, half-heartedly, like actors in a play they're tired of. A few villagers even host a comet drill, where they hide under carts and pretend to weep. You don't participate, but you do watch, and oddly, you feel comforted. Maybe fear, when shared and rehearsed enough, becomes tradition. Still, a few true believers remain. One man builds a wooden tower facing the horizon and spends each evening scanning the skies. He claims he'll ring a bell when it returns. His tower is 2 stories high, unstable, and entirely built from borrowed firewood. You decide not to stand too close. A baker in the next town over begins crafting comet loaves small, crescent-shaped bread with a burnt tail of crust. they sell surprisingly well. Even your cousin Gertrude, who once refused to bake anything resembling doom, tries her hand at a recipe. It comes out scorched, but with style. Amidst the slow return to normalcy, you find yourself drawn to the idea that comets don't just frighten, they unify. For a brief moment, everyone was looking in the same direction. Everyone was asking the same questions. That's rare. Historians still argue about this point. Some say comets fragmented societies, creating divisions between faith and science, superstition and reason. Others claim the opposite, that the shared mystery created a rare sense of togetherness, if only for a few candlelit nights. The truth, as always, is likely somewhere in between, or nowhere at all. You take a walk to the nearby woods where the view of the sky is best. The trees part, the stars wink, and you realize you haven't looked up like this in days. There's no comet tonight, just velvet darkness and quiet pinpricks of light. But in your mind, you still see it, that flaming streak, that impossible glow. It's not terrifying anymore. It's part of your memory, woven into your thoughts like a bright thread in an old tapestry. You sit on a mossy rock and wonder aloud, what did we fear? Really, was it the light, the unknown? The idea that something out there moves without permission, without explanation. Maybe it was the reminder that we are small and the sky is very large, and no matter how many prayers we whisper or charts we draw, some things will always pass above us without ever pausing to explain themselves. And maybe that's okay. As you head home, you pass by the village square. Someone has carved a new symbol into the old stone fountain, a star with a tail, and beneath it, the words, "It came." We watched. We lived. You smile, and then, just for fun, you glance over your shoulder at the sky. Still no fire, just stars. Weeks pass, and with them, the urgency fades like footprints in snow. People stop mentioning the comet. Children start misbehaving again. The chickens return to their usual levels of confusion. But you still think about it, not with fear, necessarily, but with a quiet curiosity that flutters like the pages of an old book caught in a breeze. You begin to notice that even without the comet, the sky has become a little more interesting. You've started watching the stars with something resembling intention. Not just looking up, but studying. That one looks brighter than before. That one moves slightly. You don't know their names, but they feel like companions now. One evening, while cleaning out the shed, you stumble upon a dusty scroll tied with a faded green ribbon. You didn't put it there. You don't know who did. But it's titled Signs and Celestial Concerns, a compendium of sky warnings. It reads like bedtime stories for worried monks. You sit on a barrel and begin to read. Apparently, in 1066, a comet appeared right before the Norman invasion of England. People saw it and panicked, understandably so. Others claimed it foretold victory for the invaders. Depends on which side you ask. The scroll notes, the same flame seen above may warm one heart and chill another. Poetic. You wish you had written it. Further down, it describes another comet appearing in 1456, a whip in the heavens that the Pope ordered exorcised. Yes, you read that right. Exorcised, as in prayers and holy water flung at the sky. You wonder if it worked. Historians debate the effectiveness of celestial exorcisms. Some claim it was purely symbolic, meant to reassure the public. Others believe it was a genuine act of spiritual warfare against what was perceived as a demonic presence in the sky. Either way, it didn't stop the comet. But it did sell a lot of candles. You finish reading and roll the scroll back up. You feel oddly comforted. There's something universal about fear of the unknown, and something strangely noble about trying to explain it, no matter how wrong the explanation might be. As you sit in thought, you hear someone humming nearby. It's the old tower watcher, the one who built the rickety sky lookout. He's not ringing his bell. Instead, he's sketching in charcoal on a board a drawing of the comet with tiny stick figures looking up, their arms raised. Beneath it, he writes, "We thought it would end us. It didn't." You offer him a nod. He offers you a smudge-fingered thumbs up. It's hard to tell whether he's a fool or a philosopher. Maybe both. Most likely both. That night, you dream of comets, not terrifying ones, but gentle, slow ones. One floats just above your head, casting a soft light like a lantern. It whispers, but not in words. Just a feeling. You wake up feeling oddly rested. In the village, Father Milrad starts a series of sermons called Heavenly Reminders, meant to connect scripture with celestial events. Attendance is inconsistent. People are comet-weary. Even the most devout are slightly embarrassed by how loudly they panicked. Still, the sermons give him purpose, and that seems to help. He introduces a theory that angels ride on comets to deliver messages. A few kids immediately declare they want to be comet angels when they grow up. There are drawings. There's glitter involved. You do your best not to roll your eyes. Meanwhile, a traveling peddler arrives carrying strange artifacts, a bone said to be scorched by the comet, a mirror that saw the flame and survived, and a corked bottle labeled air from the night of the tale. He charges 2 coins per look, 3 if you ask questions. You don't buy anything, but you watch others marvel. Sometimes, belief is worth more than fact. In a nearby town, rumors spread that someone predicted the comet. A man named Aldrich, who wrote a poem 3 years ago that allegedly references a firebird that slashes sky veins. People now claim he's a prophet. You read the poem, it's mostly about geese. Still, Aldrich is invited to dine with the local baron. Prophets who dabble in poultry apparently have good dinner conversation. The question lingers, can the sky be trusted again? Some villagers avoid looking up entirely, wearing wide-brimmed hats or walking with heads down like humble peasants in a painting. Others can't stop. They stare at the stars like they're waiting for a reply. You fall somewhere in the middle, respectful, but curious. You remember one of the earliest warnings back when the comet first appeared. The baker's wife had said, if it stays longer than a fortnight, it brings famine. It stayed 3. But now, oddly enough, the crops are doing well. Better than last year. Someone suggests the comet blessed the soil. And so, the story shifts again. Fear gives way to revision. The burning sky rock that once promised doom now becomes the bringer of plenty. A celestial fertilizer, a misunderstood gift. You smile to yourself. History, it seems, always edits itself after a good night's sleep. The marketplace has turned festive. Lanterns dangle from sticks. Children chase chickens for no discernible reason. And a small wooden sign above a merchant's stall reads Comet Cakes, Sweet Tales of the Sky. They're almond pastries with streaks of candied orange peel, and they sell out before noon. You buy one, mostly for research purposes. It's surprisingly good. It's hard to believe that just a few weeks ago, people were nailing prayers to their doors and hiding under straw beds. Now they're commemorating a celestial visitor with baked goods and novelty songs, One bard even debuts a new lute tune, The Fiery Whisper Who Came and Went. It has a chorus involving rhymes for parchment and firmament. Not his best work, but heartfelt. Still, not everyone is singing. You pass by old Marta's house, and she's tying bunches of dried herbs to her fence posts. It left, she mutters, but it might come back. You ask what the herbs are for. Confusion, she replies. Keeps it disoriented. You nod solemnly and move on. It feels polite, and yet, her lingering fear isn't isolated. Some people just don't trust a peaceful sky anymore. It feels too quiet, too clean, like the world is holding its breath again. You attend a gathering at the town hall where someone presents a theory of recurrence, the idea that the comet isn't gone, but circling, waiting. The presenter, a soft-spoken miller with charcoal-smudged hands, has a model made from cheese wheels and string. It's not convincing, but it is delicious. Historians still debate whether medieval people truly believed comets returned in cycles. Some evidence points to crude awareness of recurrence. Halley's Comet, for example, was likely recorded multiple times, centuries apart. But without the tools to measure, predict, or confirm, most people just chalked up repeated sightings to divine whimsy. The stars moved how they pleased. Humans just reacted. A traveler from the Low Countries arrives with stories of a monastery that built a garden shaped like a comet's tail. To remind us, the traveler says, that fear fertilizes reflection. You ask what that means. He just shrugs and says, "Sounds good, doesn't it?" It does. You begin to notice how the comet has taken on new forms, new symbols. In one window, a child's painting shows the comet holding hands with a smiling moon. In the tavern, someone's carved it into the table, a jagged streak with what might be tiny chicken legs, possibly metaphorical, possibly not. Even in confession, the comet creeps in. Father Milrad, ever the dramatist, reports that half his parishioners now begin with, "It started during the flame," before launching into tales of guilt, regret, or impulsive cabbage theft. Apparently, the sky made people confront themselves, or at least blame it when they did. You hear murmurs of a nearby village that held a mock trial for the comet. A man in a star-spangled robe stood as the sky's lawyer, defending it against charges of pestilence, anxiety, and bad dreams. They voted to pardon it, then had a feast. Honestly, that sounds healthier than most real trials. As evening falls, you take a walk through a part of the forest where the trees clear just enough to see the stars. No comet. But the constellations look a little sharper now. Or maybe your eyes are more attuned. You lie on a patch of moss and let your thoughts drift. Why do people fear the sky, not just its fire and fury, but its silence, its indifference? When the earth shakes, you can run. When someone's angry, you can reason. But when the sky sends you a burning question mark with no message, all you can do is interpret or misinterpret. That's what comets are. In the end, Rorschach tests in the heavens. You see what you fear, or hope, or both. Modern scholars write papers about this, how fear becomes narrative, and narrative becomes memory. A bright light in the sky is a fact, but what it means that becomes story, myth, morality play. Over time, the terror fades and the tale remains. You think of the child who drew the comet and moon holding hands. That's their version, their story. Maybe it's not historically accurate, but it's kind, and that matters. As you walk back, The village is quiet. Lights flicker in a few windows. A dog barks once, then settles. Somewhere. Someone is humming. You think it might be the bard, or just your imagination. You pass by the well and find a note scratched into the stone. It reads, "If the sky forgets us, we'll remember the sky." You trace your fingers over the words. They're already beginning to fade, but you remember. And maybe, just maybe, that's all the comet ever wanted. Days blur into one another now, quiet and familiar. The comet becomes less a celestial event and more a kind of shared dream that once wandered through your waking life. You mention it less often, but somehow it's still there, hovering in the back of your thoughts, like a song whose lyrics you've half forgotten. Then one afternoon, while helping the miller repair a broken wheel, you hear something curious, a distant clanging bell. At first you think it's church early, maybe, but no. It's coming from the edge of the village, from the tower. You squint, shielding your eyes. The tower watcher is up there again, furiously ringing the little brass bell he swore he'd only use for one purpose. Another one, someone gasps. You jog over, heart somewhere between dread and disbelief. By the time you reach the base of the tower, half the village is there. The watcher waves excitedly, then points. But when you look up, there's nothing. Just clear blue. He descends in a whirl of robes and splinters. I felt it. He insists. Not saw, felt. A tug in the air, like a whisper from the stars. Everyone exchanges glances. He might be losing it, or maybe he's just ahead of his time. Historians still analyze medieval beliefs in cosmic influence, the idea that stars and comets didn't just appear, but touched the world, emotionally, spiritually, even physically. Some doctors of the day believed a comet could alter a person's humors, causing melancholy, anger, or spontaneous poetry, which would explain a lot, frankly. In the following days, people quietly begin to watch the sky again, not because they see anything, but because someone said something. That's how fear works. It doesn't need evidence, just a nudge. Still, this time is different. There's less panic, more curiosity. A group of young people inspired by the Tower Watcher's vision create their own comet club. They meet at dusk with drawings, poems, and star maps drawn on recycled parchment. Their motto, "Eyes up, minds open." You attend one evening, mostly to make sure no one accidentally worships a goose. They don't. But they do share observations how the sky shifts with seasons, how stars seem to dance if you squint long enough. One girl swears she saw a red spark that winked at her. No one laughs. The conversation turns to old texts, and someone reads from an obscure manuscript found in a moldy trunk. Stars speak in silence. Comets shout. You like that. It feels true. Meanwhile, Father Milrad has gone fully thematic. His sermons now include dramatic pauses while he gazes upward. One time he even gestured skyward and muttered, "Not yet." He won't explain what that means. The baker's wife starts making not yet bread. It's undercooked on purpose, surprisingly popular. You run into the wandering scholar again, Brother Herwin, the one compiling the Comet book. He looks exhausted, but satisfied. His collection has grown to include over 100 entries, dreams, sketches, snippets of overheard fears. People tell me more now, he says, sipping warm cider. Maybe because they think the comet left something behind. A thread, a mark. You ask what he believes. He thinks a moment, that it wasn't meant for us. But we saw it anyway, like a letter delivered to the wrong address. You laugh. So we read it anyway. He grins. Of course we did. You part ways with a new sense of comfort, not because anything is solved, but because it no longer needs to be. You spend more time near the woods these days, watching the sky between tall tree limbs. It's almost summer now, and the nights are warmer. Fireflies begin to blink in the grass like tiny earthbound stars. Sometimes, when it's very quiet, you think you can still feel the tail of the comet brushing your memory. Not sharply, just gently, like a breeze that reminds you of a dream you once had on a night when the sky was on fire. There's a new inscription on the well. We stared into the sky, and it didn't blink. You don't know who wrote it, doesn't matter. You add your own underneath. Carving slowly with the tip of a spoon, we blinked, and we still saw. Summer has taken hold now, and with it comes a certain laziness in the air. Even the gossip moves slower. You still find yourself glancing upward now and then. But mostly for weather signs, will it rain? Should you bring in the laundry? Is that cloud shaped like a duck, or just your imagination again? But the comet has left more than memories. It's left habits, tiny rituals. You notice that people still knock twice before opening shutters at night. A practice that began when someone claimed it, warned the sky you were decent. Children, without knowing why, draw stars with tails in the dirt while playing. A few villagers even mark the new moon with small candles, not for light, but for listening. Listening to what you're not sure. One evening, you find yourself back at the edge of the woods, near the mossy rock that became your unofficial observatory. The stars blink lazily above, and for the first time in weeks, you don't expect anything unusual. You just enjoy it. Then, beside you, a rustle. It's Brother Herwin, the ink-stained archivist, sitting down with a long sigh. "You're not the only one who comes here," he says. He pulls a crumpled piece of parchment from his satchel. It's another entry for his book. This one's titled, "How We Looked Up and Didn't Look Away." It's a compilation of thoughts from the villagers. Some are simple. It made me stop worrying about my goat. I had a dream I was flying. I was afraid, but it was beautiful. Others are more complicated. I thought it would be fire and death, but instead it was quiet. I waited for something to happen. Then I realized I was the one waiting. My father cried when it left. I didn't ask why. You read them aloud under the stars. Some make you laugh, some leave you silent. Herwin watches you and says, "The comet wasn't the story. We were." You think he might be right. Still, not all reflections are so poetic. At the tavern, a farmer insists the comet caused his pigs to become moody. They grunt differently now, he says. There's attitude. No one disputes this. A young carpenter has carved the comet into a walking stick complete with flames and a very questionable tail. He offers it as a gift to the tower watcher, who accepts it like a royal scepter. And then there's the philosopher. No one really knows where he came from. He wears a robe 2 sizes too big and carries a scroll labeled "The Unconfirmed Path of Falling Light." He sits near the fountain and declares things like, "All things fall, but only some leave a trail." One child throws a pebble in the air to test this theory. The philosopher applauds. You suspect he might be making it up as he goes. But that's kind of the point. Isn't it? A few villages away? You hear they've built a shrine not to the comet itself, but to the feeling it left behind. It's a simple stone ring, no altar, no offerings, just a place to sit and look upward. You travel there out of curiosity. It's quiet, cool. Someone's carved the word pause into one of the stones. You sit for a while and think about all the ways people tried to make sense of what they saw. The prophets, the poets, the peddlers selling bottled comet air, and somehow, in all that confusion, they found clarity, or at least connection. Historians today argue whether these responses to comets were superstitious nonsense or deeply human acts of meaning-making. Some call them primitive, others call them essential. After all, the human brain doesn't cope well with the unexplained. So we fill the space with stories. And what better story than fire in the sky as you head home? Dusk is falling. The air hums with insects. The moon is rising, plump and soft. You stop by the old well one last time. The stone is warm from the day's sun, and your carvings are still there. You trace your fingers over the words. We blinked, and we still saw, and for the first time since the comet came, you feel no urgency to look up. You close your eyes, and you listen. The stars, tonight, are quiet, but you remember their voice. Autumn comes with its golden hush and soft crunch beneath your feet. Leaves tumble across stone paths like slow-moving flocks, and smoke from cooking fires curls lazily above rooftops. The nights are crisp now, perfect for stargazing, and though the comet is long gone, the sky still feels charged. At least to you. Most people have tucked the memory of it away like last winter's cloak, important once, but no longer needed. You, however, still watch the horizon with a quiet reverence. You're not looking for signs anymore, just texture. Then, one evening, an old man from the coast arrives with a cart full of shells, dried seaweed, and a jar labeled Tears of the Sky. Inside salt water. He tells stories of sailors who feared the comet more than pirates. They said it would pull the ocean upward, he croaks, drain it into the sky, leave the world dry as a salted cod. You laugh gently. He doesn't. He's serious. And that's the curious thing, comets seem to invite exaggeration. Yes, but also sincerity. People believe even when they don't understand, maybe especially when they don't understand. In a nearby town, the blacksmith has forged tiny comet charms. They're crude, basically blobs with jagged lines, but people wear them anyway. Around necks, sewn into cloaks. One noblewoman commissions a hairpin shaped like a comet's tail, studded with dull sapphires. She says it's for protection. Her maid whispers, but also fashion, always both. Meanwhile, in the monastery library, Brother Herwin adds a new section to his ever-growing tome. This one is titled Speculation, Folklore, and Confused Chickens. It includes a chart of superstitions ranked by plausibility. From comets make cows give sour milk, unlikely to comets, alter dreams strong maybe. You read a few aloud at the tavern. They go over surprisingly well. The innkeeper even starts a comet night once a week, discounted drinks, and a free bowl of stew for anyone who shares a comet memory. Real or imagined. The stories range from poetic to profoundly odd. One man claims the comet whispered tax advice. Another swears his dog spoke Latin, just once, then never again. You listen, amused and moved, because whether the stories are true or not doesn't matter. They're remembered, and that gives them shape. Scholars today argue over just how deeply comets affected medieval life. Some say they were blips, brief, if dramatic, interludes. Others claim they were pivots, moments when belief, science, fear, and wonder collided in midair. Your experience suggests a little of both. You recall how the comet changed the way people talked, how it altered the rhythm of prayer, the tone of gossip, even the pace of morning routines, how it made people pause before stepping outside, how it lingered in the corners of every conversation, and then faded, like so many things. Now, there's a new trend, comet-themed riddles. What burns but brings no heat, and leaves before you greet, you hear it recited by children in the square. Some get it wrong on purpose, just to giggle. One clever boy offers my aunt after dinner, close, at home. You find your neighbor has painted a tiny white streak on her doorframe. For luck, she says, and to keep the mice out. You're not sure how that works, but it's charming. Later, you visit the old tower again. The watcher has gone off to build a new one somewhere with better elevation and fewer geese. But he left behind his walking stick, the comet one. It leans against the base, a little worn, but proud. You take a moment, place your hand on it, and smile. Then you leave it where it is. It belongs to the sky now. That night, the stars seem particularly crisp. No firetails, no glowing omens, just the vast quiet above and the rustle of wind through harvest-ready fields. And you think, not for the first time, that maybe the comet wasn't meant to change everything. Maybe it was just meant to remind you that even the sky can surprise you, and that sometimes it's okay to be surprised. The wind turns colder now, not biting, but insistent, a reminder that winter is near. Leaves crunch underfoot like brittle parchment, and chimney smoke starts its seasonal return to the sky. You find yourself layering wool earlier in the evening, fingers seeking pockets for warmth, mind slipping once more into quiet observation. At the edge of the village, where the woods meet the fields, someone has erected a wooden arch. On it, a rough carving of the comet's path, flanked by two birds, one with open wings, the other tucked into itself. No one knows who built it. Some say it was the traveling philosopher. Others blame the carpenter and a surplus of spare wood. Regardless, it's become a landmark. People walk by and nod. They don't always stop, but they nod. Even that feels like a kind of reverence. You notice other markers, two small ones, hidden in plain sight. A roof shingle painted with a tail of white. A jug labeled sky water sitting beside a well. A child's spinning toy, decorated with stars and a strangely happy-looking flame. It's as if the village has absorbed the comet not as a singular event, but as a layer of meaning, folded into everything else. That's how memory works, not as a separate chapter, but as a thread running beneath the pages. At the tavern, someone proposes a toast to things we feared and now find funny. Mugs clink. Laughter follows, but not all are ready to laugh. The blacksmith still swears the iron he forged during the comet week rings sharper. He demonstrates by striking a horseshoe with theatrical flair. It's a normal clink, but everyone agrees politely. One woman says her dreams have changed, more vivid, more upward. I fly in all of them now, she says, always toward something bright. You wonder if she's alone in that? Later, while walking by the river, you spot a small gathering of villagers looking skyward. No comet, just stars. Still, they linger, bundled in cloaks and huddled together. You join them. No one speaks for a while. Then a voice soft, Older says. It was like being noticed. The words settle in the air like dust. Not watched, not judged, just noticed. That might be the most honest description of the entire experience. Scholars may study the patterns of fear, the political interpretations, the religious symbolism. But here, in the quiet of a field under cold stars, you realize the heart of it, the sense that the universe, for a moment, made eye contact and then moved on. You recall an old story Brother Herwin once shared, a tale of a comet that appeared on the night a forgotten queen died. No one remembered her name or why she mattered, but the comet's presence became her eulogy, a sky-born tribute. You wonder how many other moments in history were silently marked by flame overhead. How many private fears lit up the heavens for no one else to see. You lie back in the grass. Frost is beginning to settle, crisping the edges of the world. Your breath rises, visible and slow. Above, the stars wheel gently on. You think of the tower watcher's first bell. You think of old Marta's confusion herbs. You think of the bread shaped like tails, the tax advice from the sky, the child's drawing of stars holding hands. And you think of the phrase carved into the well, we blinked, and we still saw. You understand it better now. You're no longer watching for comets. You're watching for moments like that. Unscheduled, unexplained, unmistakable. Not to fear them, but to remember them. Because some things don't return, but the way you carry them does. Frost clings to the fields in the mornings now, sparkling like powdered glass in the early light. You can hear it crunch beneath your boots as you walk to the bakery, breath curling from your lips in soft clouds. The seasons are shifting, and the sky feels higher, somehow crisper, cleaner, less burdened. But the comet still lingers in conversation, not in panic, not in fear, just as a gentle aftertaste in stories and jokes and memory, like the scent of wood smoke on a favorite cloak. At the bakery, you overhear two elderly women debating whether the comet changed the taste of the water. It's sweeter now, one insists. Less of that mossy finish. The other disagrees, saying it tastes exactly the same. Neither offers evidence. Both are certain. The baker adds a new menu item, sky sugar rolls. They're the same as the regular rolls, just dusted with glittering salt and a story. They sell out daily. You spend more time indoors these days, as the wind grows sharper and the air smells faintly of iron and snow. But every evening, without fail, you pause at the window, not searching, just acknowledging, as if to say, I'm still here if you are. One night, Brother Herwin stops by with his nearly finished book. He lays it on your table like an offering. The binding is uneven, and the ink has bled through in places, but it is beautiful in its effort. He reads aloud a section titled Interpretations and Interludes. It's a collection of quotes, journal entries, overheard mutterings, and drawings submitted by villagers. Some are detailed, others are little more than smudges, but every page hums with meaning shaky, hopeful, contradictory meaning. One drawing stands out, a child's depiction of the comet not in the sky, but buried underground, like a seed. To grow another one, the note reads, You and Herwin sit in silence for a while, letting that image rest in the room like steam from a warm cup. I wonder, he says eventually, if the comet was just a mirror. It didn't bring anything, it reflected what was already here. You nod slowly, a long, flaming mirror. And we made faces into it, he adds with a soft laugh. Later, by the fire, you write your own addition to his book. It's not a poem or a theory, just a question. If the sky could speak plainly, would we still listen? You don't sign your name. Doesn't matter. The sky knows. Outside, snow begins to fall gentle, deliberate, the first flakes of the season. You watch them dance under the lantern light and think even snowflakes are small comets in their own way. White, falling, fleeting. Quiet signs from above. The next morning, a notice appears in the village square winter stargazing, hosted by the Young Comet Watchers Society. You chuckle at the formality. There will be hot broth, shared cloaks, and someone reading star poems too loudly. You decide to go. At the gathering, you find familiar faces and new ones, all tilted upward in the same shared wonder. Someone points out Orion's belt. Someone else claims to see a ghost tail near the moon. You know it's not really there, but part of you looks anyway, because that's the thing about having once seen something extraordinary in the sky. It leaves your eyes just a little wider forever, and your imagination just a little more lit. By the fire, someone plays a soft tune on a reed pipe. No words, no declarations, just notes drifting into the cold night air like messages the sky might remember. The snow continues gently, and you, wrapped in a second-hand cloak and surrounded by people who once feared a smear of light across the sky, feel a quiet warmth that has nothing to do with the fire. This, too, is what comets bring. Not endings, but circles. The solstice arrives with barely a whisper, just a longer shadow at noon and a deeper hush at night. You feel it more than see it. Even the animals seem to move slower, as though time itself has thickened, like soup left too long on the hearth. You spend the morning chopping firewood with numb fingers, and the afternoon helping your neighbor patch a drafty window. The sun sets early, the moon rises early, and in between, you remember. The comet. It's strange how something so bright could leave such a quiet echo. Yet there it is in the lull between stories, in the pause before sleep, in the lingering glance at the northern sky. You no longer speak of it every day, but every day is still shaped, faintly, by its passage. At the winter market, stalls are fewer, but spirits are high. A vendor sells small pendants carved from river stones, each scratched with a spiral tail. For balance, she says, and for listening. You buy one, though you're not sure why. It feels good in your palm, smooth and cool, like a truth no one's had to explain yet. Children chase one another between carts, flinging snow and comet-themed insults. You're the tail, no, you're the tail. At least I'm not full of fire and sadness, you smile. The sky has clearly left its mark on their vocabulary. In the village square, a small stage has been set up for what's being called the first annual Comet Tale Evening. You don't recall agreeing to this tradition, but it seems the comet's visit has grown into something larger than memory. It's now folklore. The performance begins at dusk, with villagers taking turns reciting their favorite versions of the comet's arrival. Some are dramatic, filled with thunder and divine judgment. Others are comedic, like the tale of the man who tried to catch it in a laundry basket. A group of children act out a skit where the comet falls in love with the moon, only to be pulled away by the stars. The audience claps, whistles, and occasionally throws breadcrumbs in lieu of flowers. You're called on stage near the end, unexpectedly. The crowd wants your version, You hesitate, then speak slowly, not from memory, but from feeling. It was quiet, you say. Then it was not. It came. It startled us. We argued about it, feared it, prayed to it, ignored it. Then it left, and we stayed. There's a long pause. And now, you add, we're different. You step down. No applause. Just a kind of nodding silence. Later that night, a few villagers gather again in the field near the old tower. The snow crunches beneath their boots, and their breaths rise in clouds. Someone has built a small fire. You sit in its orange glow, eyes on the horizon. There's no comet, just stars. And yet, one of the younger villagers leans over and whispers, "Do you feel that, like, it might be watching?" You don't laugh. You nod. Because sometimes, the absence of something can feel just as present. Scholars might argue that the comet's influence was exaggerated, that no stone fell, no plague followed, no miracle arrived. But those same scholars never sat under a frozen sky with people who looked upward and saw not a rock, but a reason. To fear, to reflect, to come together, to change. You lie back, snow crunching beneath your shoulders, and trace patterns in the stars with your eyes. Orion, again. Cassiopeia. That faint blur, was that always there? You imagine the comet, far beyond your sight now, drifting silently through space, still burning, still moving, utterly indifferent, and yet, somehow, remembered. Back in the village, someone has placed a small comet charm above the chapel door. Just a circle and a streak, carved from driftwood. You touch it in passing. It's cold, but not lifeless. You think about what it means to leave a mark, not a grand monument, not a decree, just a trace, a streak of light, a shared moment, a story passed down through the frost. Maybe that's all the comet ever did, and maybe that's enough. The snow deepens, muffling footsteps and softening the sounds of daily life. Even the bells from the chapel seem quieter now, wrapped in woolen air. You walk slower, not just because of the slippery stones beneath your boots, but because winter asks for patience. Inside your home, the fire crackles steadily, and your breath no longer fogs in the mornings. You've grown used to the rhythm of cold months, the careful gathering of wood, the slow boiling of stew, the long evenings spent mending things that don't need mending, just something to do with your hands. And still, sometimes, the comet flickers behind your thoughts like a memory just out of reach. Until one day, a visitor arrives. He's wrapped in furs, his beard like frost-woven rope, his accent unfamiliar. He carries a scroll case and a pouch full of coins that jingle too loudly for winter. He says he's come to collect comet stories from common folk. You resist the urge to point out that you're technically above average folk. Still, he offers coin for tales, and soon the villagers gather in the tavern to share. Some stories are now exaggerated beyond recognition. One man claims he touched the comet. Another says it spoke to him in rhyme. A child insists she rode it like a pony across the sky. The stranger nods, writes quickly, rarely interrupts. Then he turns to you. What did you see? You don't answer at first. Not because you don't know, but because you know too much. I saw us, you say at last. Afraid, awake, alive. He scribbles that down with a pleased hum. Later, over warm cider, you ask what he plans to do with all these stories. Make sense of them, he replies. You smile. Good luck. Because that's the thing, isn't it? You can't really make sense of a comet. It doesn't have a thesis, it has a trail, it has timing, but no tidy message. It just arrives, stirs things up, leaves. It's people who attach meaning, and meaning, as you've learned, is deeply personal. Still, the visitor's arrival sparks something in the village. People start writing again, scribbles on parchment, notes in the margins of cookbooks, lines scratched into the frost on windows, poems, questions, diagrams, drawings of the comet with faces or wings or sometimes nothing at all, just light. Brother Herwin collects them all. His book has outgrown its original binding. Now it's a bundle of bundles, a soft mass of pages tied together with twine and hope. He calls it The Memory That Burned. You think it sounds like a romance novel, but you approve. Meanwhile, the snow continues to fall. Someone sculpts a comet from packed snow near the well. It doesn't last long. Sunlight melts the tail by midday, but no one minds. It's the making of it that matters. A visiting tanner composes a song called Comet Weather. It's slow and oddly cheerful. It becomes a favorite. And one day, you overhear a group of children debating whether comets choose where to appear. Like, what if it wanted to visit us, one asks. What if we were special? You pause, because for a brief, impossible moment, it did feel like that. Not because the comet cared, but because you cared. You watched. You wondered. You carried its mark long after the fire faded from the sky. That's what makes it sacred, not its presence, but your response. Historians often frame comets as agents of chaos or symbols of divine intention. They chart their paths, compare them to political upheavals, scribble their impacts into dusty timelines. But none of those documents ever quite capture what it feels like to see one, to feel the world pause, to know that, however briefly, something impossible shared your sky. That night, you lie awake and imagine the comet's tail curling back across the stars. Not toward you, not away from you, just moving, just being. And in the stillness that follows, you understand something. The comet never needed you to understand it. It just needed you to notice. The calendar turns, though most in your village don't use one. Time is marked by thaw and frost, planting and harvest, stars and snow. Still, the new year comes quietly, as it always does. No fireworks, just a longer sunrise, a sharper morning, a deeper breath. The comet is no longer spoken of every day, but neither is it forgotten. Its memory has become part of the fabric now, like the scent of smoke in your cloak or the shape of the chapel's shadow at noon. But then, something strange happens. A message arrives, scrawled on the back of a tax notice of all things. It's from a nearby village, one over the hills and across a frozen stream. They've heard of your village's comet experiences. They want to trade stories. You're not sure how word spread, perhaps the wandering philosopher, perhaps the scroll collector, perhaps just the wind. But the idea catches fire. A group is assembled: scribes, singers, and you. Because apparently, you're now the comet person. You don't argue. The journey is short but chilly. You arrive to a small crowd waiting around a bonfire. They've cleared snow from a circle in the village square, and you're ushered into it like a visiting dignitary. Their tales are similar and yet different. They feared the comet, too. One elder says his hens stopped laying eggs for 3 nights. A boy claims he dreamed of fire, but only under his bed. Their priest insisted the comet foretold a flood, despite it being midwinter. You exchange stories, laughs, reflections. Then someone from their village says, "We blamed the comet for things we already feared." The words hang there, glowing. You realize how true it is. For all its fire and brilliance, the comet didn't invent your fears, it merely lit them up. Showed you the cracks you were already trying to ignore. That the roof leaked. That the food wouldn't last the winter. That the world outside was vast and unknowable. And yet, the comet also brought things you weren't expecting. Wonder. Connection. Community. Hope. You share your version of events. The bell in the tower. The comet-shaped bread. The carved messages at the well. People nod along, not because they had the same details, but because they know the feeling. It's not the same sky you all saw, it's the same reaction to it. One woman from the other village brings forward a piece of wood carved into a curved tail. "It's not very good," she says shyly. "It's perfect," someone replies. You spend the night in their guest house, warmed by a clay stove and unfamiliar wool blankets. Before you sleep, you step outside. The stars are the same ones you see from home, but tonight they feel like they're twinkling in a slightly different rhythm. Maybe that's just the cider. Maybe not. On the journey back, your group is quiet, reflective. You carry a small sack of gifts from the neighboring village, more carvings. A folded map someone drew of where the comet might return, and a poem written on waxed parchment titled, "The Night the Sky Cried Light." You hang the poem by your window when you return. It flutters every time someone opens the shutters. Later that week, Father Milrad gives a sermon that includes the phrase, "Some flames come not to burn, but to remind us that we still carry fire inside." It's dramatic, but no one rolls their eyes. This time, it fits. The village begins discussing what to do next time a comet appears. Someone suggests preparing a feast. Another says they'll write down their feelings each night. A third proposes building a platform so everyone can watch together. You suggest simply watching with no plan at all. They nod. Even that is a plan. And in the quiet days that follow, you begin writing again. Not for anyone. Not to be read. Just to put it down, this strange moment in your life when a rock of ice and flame scribbled across the sky and changed the way you saw everything below it. You don't call it a journal. You call it a tale. Because that's what a comet leaves behind. A trail. A trace. A reminder that you were watching and that you noticed. It's nearly spring now. You can hear it before you see it drips from melting eaves. The crack of thawing earth. Birds testing out half-remembered songs. The days are longer, and so are the silences between them. People smile more, though they still wear layers. Old habits linger, like frost in the corners of a cellar. One morning, you wake to find a child's drawing pinned to your door. It's the comet again, but this time, it has a face. Not angry, not mysterious, just peaceful, like it's waving goodbye. Beneath it is a single word, spelled wrong, "Thank you." You keep it. You find yourself thinking back, tracing the timeline of everything that followed that flaming sky trail. The fear, the arguments, the bread, the laughter, the stories, the quiet understanding. And it strikes you, it wasn't just the comet that passed. It was a version of the village, a version of yourself, like a skin shed in light. In the weeks that follow, the old tower is finally dismantled. Not for lack of use, but because the wood is needed for spring repairs. A small ceremony is held. Someone plays a lute. Someone else reads a short speech. The tower watcher, now more legend than man, sends a note that simply says, "Eyes up, always." The comet walking stick is split into 3 pieces, one given to the chapel, one to the school, and one placed in the fields where it first appeared over the horizon. A marker, a memory. At the last gathering of the season, Brother Herwin presents his finished work. Its massive stitched parchment, clumsy leather cover, a title burned onto the front in shaky hand, "The Comet That Taught Us to Look." He invites you to write the final entry. You sit for a long time before the blank page, and then, in your own small, steady script, you write, "We feared a sign, but it gave us a mirror. We waited for doom, but found each other instead." The sky does not owe us explanations, but sometimes it gives us presence. And for that, we watched. And we are still watching. You close the book gently. At home, you light a single candle and set it by the window. A personal tradition. One flicker for one trail of light. Not to summon it, not to keep it away, just to honor what passed through. Later that night, you wake up and look out toward the north. No comet, but the sky is clear, crisp, infinite, and it's enough. You crawl back under your blankets with a feeling you don't have a word for somewhere between peace and promise. A quiet joy wrapped in the fabric of memory. And as sleep pulls you under, you dream not of fire or fear, but of walking with others uphill, beneath stars, all of you looking skyward together. No destination, just the journey of watching. The story is quiet now. The comet has long since vanished into the folds of space, like a bookmark tucked away in the vast library of the cosmos. But its trail lingers, not in the sky, but in memory and the hush of your village, in the softened edges of routine, in the way you pause a little longer before looking away from the stars. Time has moved on, as it always does. The roof still leaks. The stew still burns occasionally. The chickens still misbehave with remarkable consistency. But something in you has shifted. You carry a stillness now, a gentle awareness, not of what might happen, or what should have, but of what was. A light that came unasked, a question without an answer, a shared gaze that turned fear into ritual, ritual into story, and story into something worth holding on to. You don't need to explain it, not to yourself, not to anyone. You just know, and on the nights when the wind is soft and the stars don't twinkle so much as hum, you light a small candle again, not out of longing, not out of habit, just as a gesture, a whisper back to the sky, "I saw you. I remember." And maybe, somewhere in the darkness, something remembers you too. So now, dear listener, let the image of the comet drift further and further, its glow fading gently into the velvet night behind your closed eyes. Breathe. Let the stars grow dim, like embers at the end of a long fire. Let your thoughts settle like snow over the rooftops. Let sleep arrive soft as starlight